Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
Cook Inlet Tug and Barge is a marine transportation company specializing in harbor services with a primary marketing focus on the Port of Anchorage, providing their customers with quality-based service specifically tailored to their needs.
Indie Alaska is an innovative weekly web series capturing the diverse and colorful lifestyle of Alaskans. Real stories of everyday Alaskans at work and play. Supported in part by Alyeska Pipeline Service Company.
The National Weather Service.
Hello everyone, and thanks for joining us for Friday's edition of Alaska Weather. Up first, quite a few winter weather advisories for snow here from, Arctic Village and the Copper River, or the upper Yukon Valley here, southward into the Tanana Valley. Looking for anywhere from 2 to 4 inches of snow in the mid-Tanana Valley possible tonight. 2 inches around Fairbanks, and then lesser amounts out to the west, and about those same snowfall amounts possible here all the way over to the border, except the Alaska Range, especially on the north slopes, could see anywhere from 4 to 6 or more inches, especially over the higher elevations there. So it'll be a little snowy going through Isabel Pass tonight. Winter weather advisory also out for the Copper River Basin, seeing a couple inches fall in some areas there today. Currently stopped snowing in Glen Allen, but more expected to move in, and also a winter weather advisory for the Anchorage Hillside area, mainly above 500 feet, could see 3 to 6 inches, with that 6 inches probably falling closer to the 1,000-foot level, or accumulating closer to the 1,000-foot level, and that out through tonight, then tapering off tomorrow. Moving on to the satellite imagery. Out west here, we've had storminess, kind of moving up to the north, big area low pressure over the Sea of Okhotsk, and a trailing front moving into the southwest Bering, and some more activity here developing off of Japan, tropical storm in that area. And again, this has mostly been staying to the west here with high pressure over the Bering Sea, but during the weekend, we start seeing some gale force winds move into the western Aleutians tomorrow, and then push into the central Aleutians, southwest Bering tomorrow night and on to Sunday. Today we can see this storm moving up to the North Gulf Coast, pushing a couple of bands of moisture, several in, actually the third here, that wrap around along the North Gulf Coast. That giving the gale force winds today, and the moderate to heavy rain in this area from about Sitka, maybe Port Alexander on north in across Lynn Canal Glacier Bay back to about Yakutat, but rainfall also extending all the way into Whittier, and now showing up along the Chugach Mountains in the form of snow there at the higher elevations, with some very light rain reaching the Anchorage area. Snow again and over the Copper River Basin, lifting northward. A few flurries got into Northway, but I noticed Delta Junction was down to 1 to 3 miles this afternoon in snow, and that had pushed westward to around North Pole, Eielson Air Force Base. They're down to 3 miles in light snow, with clouds back to the west. Kind of an isolated snow and rain shower band right through this area from the Kilbrook Mountains right up into the Koyukuk Valley. Sunshine back to the west there, and you pick up some more clouds out over the Bering Sea with those gusty north winds coming southward. And sunshine, Kodiak Island up into southern Kenai Peninsula, most of Cook Inlet, and it looks like the western Susitna Valley, especially back here to the west with the clouds increasing from the east there, and a lot of moisture, mostly in the form of clouds. So there was some areas or occasional light rain and scattered showers on the Bering Sea side of the peninsula. Winds are gusting 20 to 30 to 35 miles an hour. Bethel northeast at about 30 to 35 in gusts in that area, but fair amount of clearing here out over the south central Bering Sea and the Aleutians. You get a band of moisture out here, pretty narrow on the rainfall there, with that weak low just south of the Komodorsky Islands. And on the chart here, there's that low way out to the west, high pressure over the Russian Far East, excuse me, and then this low, about this position midday today, Again, a couple of fronts, this front moving through earlier, and then the next one right about in this position, and then I didn't mark it in here, but the wraparound or the bent back occlusion, that bringing another increase in the winds, gale force winds along the North Gulf Coast, and the heavier rain today will eventually diminish to showers. This low pulling northward, upper level trough right through this area, gradually edging eastward there. And as this lifts northward, that'll bring the chances of snow into a little bit farther to the west than what we're seeing today. Again, at the higher elevations, down toward sea level, kind of a wet mixture of rain or snow with not much accumulation except possibly on grassy areas. And for tonight, we'll see actually a new development right in this area in response to these north and northwest winds. Back to the west, that storm lifts northward onto the coast tonight, and then showers and winds diminishing, but a broad area of southwest flow here carrying these showers out to the west, northward, and they kind of interact and enhance when they hit the terrain there, so tends to become just an area of flat out rain, but will be more showery and more intermittent than with the system today pulling northward. And then a very weak trough here that brought some snow, a couple inches out in the Barrow area, or 1 to 2 inches there in areas that dropped southward, kind of stalled out there over the north slope and along the north side of the Brooks Range tonight with some flurries trailing back to the west. Northerly winds continue here over the eastern Bering Sea, keeping it dry and mostly clear over the southwest and western interior areas with not bad conditions, maybe some clouds, but still dry for Kodiak Island, and that moisture on the Bering Sea side of the peninsula there, but partly cloudy conditions out to the west, and then that very weak system hanging around the Shimia area. And for tomorrow, we'll see another mass of moisture that's down in this area currently will pull northward and probably develop another frontal system, so more rain and possibly an increase in the winds here. Looks like possible gales mostly west of these coastal areas, more likely in the offshore zones there, and especially on the north coast, windiest conditions. And overnight tonight when this low pulls northward, pretty windy. Could see gusts 40 to 50 miles an hour up through Lynn Canal, Haines into Skagway. Later tonight when that system pulls northward, and those will tend to diminish tomorrow afternoon. High pressure drying out with partly sunny skies developing over the southern southeast coast. Otherwise, more snow showers, scattered snow showers or flurries coming onto the western and central Arctic coastal areas. Trough axis right through this area aloft, so behind it you got the clear skies and the dry conditions, sunshine, but most of the moisture along the trough axis, and in advance of that getting a little beat up by the terrain here, so some areas not going to see much at all. And of course in the afternoon, depending on your elevation, mixture of rain or snow, but flat out rain for the North Gulf Coast, back down along the Kenai Peninsula, staying dry there for Kodiak Island, possibly a snow shower showing up over the Aleutian Range. And now on to Sunday, again late tomorrow night, another system develops here and moves northward, and so it looks like gale and possible storm force winds late tomorrow night coming into mainly the North Gulf Coast. That'll linger into Sunday morning until this low center pulls up to the north, and the front will push eastward, so the rain occasionally heavy at times, and the gusty south winds possibly as high as 60-65 miles an hour in gusts along the north coast, diminishing in the afternoon gradually, and by late in the afternoon less wind, more showery conditions, but you can see a couple of troughs rotating around, and you can still see chance of snow into possibly northern Cook Inlet here, best chances up to the north, some of that wrapping back around along the Alaska Range in the form of some isolated snow showers or flurries. That is a misplaced rain symbol there. Sunshine out here to the west again, and kind of cool but not all that cold, with lighter winds with the ridge axis pushing eastward here right up along the coast. Winds will be pretty light, just barely a breeze here right along the coastal areas to the Alaska Peninsula, becoming light and variable there for Cold Bay, False Pass, and hanging on to the small craft advisories though for the areas southwest of Kodiak Island. Probably some gales here, Kamishak Bay and in across the Barren Islands. Northwesterly gales at times, and look for kind of an increase in the northerlies here for south central Alaska and the channeled areas along the Kenai Peninsula, western Prince William Sound. Return to those westerly winds gusting possibly as high as 40 miles an hour through Passage Canal. Here's that frontal system will bring the gale force winds into the western Aleutians tomorrow and tomorrow afternoon or tomorrow night, but that will push eastward to about this location here. Pretty active front now making its way into the southwest Bering with rain and then a fairly intense low center off to the southwest. Temperatures today in the mid to upper 50s for the Panhandle, but Skagway 43 degrees with rain, 54 moderate rain there occurring at 4 p.m. at Sitka. About the same up at Hoona, Yakutat 50 moderate rain, 52 at Cordova, the 45 here at Valdez. Gulkana 31 degrees, snow has stopped at least for now, and 34 at Northway, 31 Delta. Fairbanks 43 degrees and clouds, 42 at Tanana. Up to the north, 21 Anatuvik and a 30-degree reading over at Arctic Village, while Bettles had 37 with a 42 at Tanana. Again, Anchorage 42, Kenai 50, and Homer up to 55 degrees. Mid to upper 30s back here to the west, and then right around freezing along the Arctic coast with some upper 20s inland there. Atchison 29, 32 Point Lay, 36 at Cape Lisburne, and mid to upper 30s here in the northwest. Nome 40 degrees today. Windy or breezy, windy, 41 degrees there, but some sunshine at Bethel, and 45 out at Macoriac on Nunivak Island, 37 at Gamble and Savunga. 47 today there at either Prince George or at either St. George or St. Paul, or both locations, and a 48 at Unalaska. Lower 50s here with some sunshine, Adak and Atka, and then clouds and 50 over toward Shimia. See 40s up along the peninsula into Bristol Bay, the 54 at Kodiak. Lows tonight, teens and 20s here, coldest readings over the North Slope and of course the higher elevations of the Brooks Range. Milder to upper 20s to mid 30s here back along the west to near 40 out along the coast there to lower 40s. Bering Sea, mid 40s, both of the Aleutians, mid to upper 40s for the Panhandle. Highs tomorrow, upper 20s to lower 30s here for the North Slope and Arctic coast. A little chillier in across the Brooks Range with the higher elevations, and lower to mid 30s, kind of a range here across the central interior with warmest conditions with that kind of pulled back around from the southeast, keeping the eastern Tanana Valley 40-mile country from about Eagle on down toward Tok and Northway in the lower 40s. Mid 50s for the southeast coast and lower 40s along the southwest areas. For flying weather, of course, with the trough axis right through here, tomorrow the VFR will be back to the west. In advance of that with the clouds, rain and snow, areas of IFR, but could be some VFR hanging on here over the eastern interior, but from the Alaska range southward, occasional IFR with marginal VFR, but improving here over the southeast coast. The IFR to start with in the north becoming marginal in the afternoon to possibly VFR by late afternoon, definitely becoming VFR over the southern areas. And the Bering Sea areas of marginal VFR along the Alaska Peninsula, eastern Aleutians, north sides, and some of that extending up toward the Bering Strait, and then some more stuff pushing into the western areas. For Anatuvik, IFR at times tomorrow, otherwise marginal. And for Adigan, same thing, occasional IFR, either approach, otherwise marginal VFR. And for Lake Clark and Merrill, starting out marginal VFR with the lowest conditions on the western entrances, briefly IFR. That'd probably be for Merrill and not so much for Lake Clark, but becoming VFR probably during the morning hours tomorrow. Rainy, improving from whatever you start with, which could be IFR, especially on the east entrance, becoming occasionally marginal in the afternoon, and then for windy, marginal VFR to occasional IFR at times tomorrow. Isabel, kind of an IFR day there. Same thing from Mentasta. Expect some IFR conditions there on either approach throughout the entire day. Tanita starting out low and then gradually, slowly improving to VFR conditions late in the day. Whether it makes it to VFR, hard to say, but definitely be an improvement in the afternoon. Portage becoming IFR or staying IFR at times through the entire day. Chilkoot and White slowly improving, could start at IFR and then become marginal to possibly VFR late in the day. Freezing levels here showing again the coldest air now in over the interior, a little milder back out over the Bering Sea, 2,000 to 4,000 feet there, but the real gradient here along the southeast coast there with, again, that southwest and southerly jet with that. And then most of the moisture will have gone through. Here's another batch coming northward during the afternoon, then some more stuff developing, which will move on up tomorrow night and early Sunday and bring increased icing threats into the southeast coast, and then this zone right through here in advance of the upper trough, dry back to the west. And the winds aloft again matching up with those freezing levels, 135 knots cutting across the southern southeast coast, and then the northern branch here 40 to 60 knots, the Arctic jet wrapping around that trough axis right through the central interior. 15 to 30 knot winds here, 25 down across the Alaska Peninsula, and pretty windy also in advance of the trough there, south-southwest 25 to 50 knots. 3,000 feet, much lighter here, 15 to 20 knots. But you can see another wind max here with another wave forming and moving northward, and then even another max south of that location. And for turbulence, occasional moderate chop right through this area, pretty smooth down over the southern areas, and then mechanical turbulence, Kodiak Island, Alaska Peninsula, and then the mountainous terrain back up along and in towards St. Lawrence Island, and then the heavier stuff coming in way out to the west. And after the break, Hangar Flying, I'll be back with the marine forecasts.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Mary O'Connor with the Alaskan Aviation Safety Foundation and with the National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health. We'd like to thank Alaska Public Media for allowing us to bring you Hangar Flying. We are pleased to have Steve Williams back on our show. Steve is a designated pilot examiner, a Gold Star flight instructor, an airframe and power plant mechanic, and a pilot with over 15,000 hours. Tonight, we are continuing our talk with him about angle of attack indicators. Welcome back, Steve.
Welcome, or thank you.
On our last show, we talked about angle of attack indicators and why they're a great idea to help pilots increase their safety margin. Can you tell us about the installation process?
First of all, the FAA has made it a minor alteration, so that's a great thing. Installation instructions were reasonably straightforward. The difficult was setting the angle of the probe on the wing. Took us 3 or 4 tries. We'd go to calibrate it and it wouldn't calibrate. We'd have to come back and change the probe. Once that was in limits, then calibrating was fairly simple, just pushing a button at 1.3 VSO.
So by calibrating, you mean taking the airplane up in the air, flying it, and matching airspeeds?
Yes, you calibrate it in a hangar, so it has a static calibration, and then you push a button at 1.3 VSO, power off, and then you accelerate to cruise and push your cruise configuration, and then you save all the data, and it's done.
Oh, wow.
So pretty simple. First 2 times we did it, it wouldn't calibrate because we had the AOA probe at the wrong angle on the wing. And there's about 10 adjustments. You just move it 5-degree increments.
So it sounds like patience is probably the most required asset for working out the calibration process.
Plan on 2 or 3 flights
Okay.
To be able to calibrate it.
Okay. And what type of pilots do you think would most benefit from installing angle of attack indicators?
All pilots, private pilots, can understand the relationship between angle of attack and speed and stall. Advanced pilots can use it by understanding that they're on speed when they're going to a short gravel bar. They're not too slow, they're not too fast. It helps me in my fly-in, and I fly Cubs lots, so I'm an advocate for everybody. It helps my primary students understand angle of attack, another piece of the puzzle.
So you had mentioned that you had flown with an angle of attack indicator in a citation in a previous life, and now you have one in a Super Cub. So you think every airplane in between those 2 extremes would benefit from an angle of attack indicator?
It's a huge thing. The problem with our stall speed in airplanes is at gross weight, aft CG, power off. Well, that number is very subjective. Angle of attack indicator works at any weight, any CG, so it's a more accurate indication of your stall or your margin above stall.
Okay. So do you plan on using them in your advanced training that you do with people that want to go out and do gravel bar work or short strip work?
In fact, that's where it's the most useful. I work with people on the stall spin problem, the moose stall problem, and typically it happens on their departure or even greater in downwind to base and base to final. And it's a picture of the angle of attack increasing when you're making that downwind to base turn and the base to final turn. And when you're on your departure stall, when you make your crosswind turn, if you haven't accelerated, it tells you, it shows you that your angle of attack is increased in the turn. Great teaching tool and practical use.
So if I was thinking about getting one of these for my airplane, is there a way to test them out, or how might I see if this would be a good thing for me?
Well, my flight school is Acme Cub Training, and we have a Super Cub with one installed, and we're glad to take people out and show them how it works, and show them the indications, and let them get comfortable, see how user-friendly the hardware is.
So after your experience, you've just had it for a month, do you think you might want to install angle of attack indicators in any other of your aircraft?
I'm in the process of building a second wheel cub for my flight school this winter, and it's definitely on the list. We'll be on the equipment list.
Great. You sound like a true advocate.
It's a good thing. It's a good safety thing and a good teaching tool. I definitely think they'll help people understand angle of attack and stalls.
Great, and that will lead to a safer pilot population.
I definitely will help people understand how to fly safer.
Great. Thank you so much for being here with us, Steve.
Thank you.
It's been great learning about angle of attack indicators and hearing another pilot describe the benefits of them. We're getting more and more aircraft in Alaska equipped with angle of attack indicators, and helping pilots learn about options for safety is a goal. Christmas is coming, and for you pilots out there, this Christmas might be the one where you give yourself a gift that might save lives. Until next time, fly safely.
Welcome back. Tonight, when this low that's off the coast pulls northward, winds here at Lincoln on Glacier Bay could kick up 40 to 50 miles an hour, and then that could last into tomorrow, then dropping back to 20 knots. And there are small craft advisories here for areas of the inside waters through tonight, but then those will be much lighter tomorrow, coming down 10 to 15. Southeast to east, 20 to 25 knots. Strongest winds probably up here along the north coast. And then again, a system pulling up, possibly bringing gale force winds and maybe even narrow area storm force winds late tomorrow night into early Sunday. And then when that moves through, same sort of pattern here. The winds kick up from the south and then diminish late, coming down to 10 knots over the southern waters. Kind of a southwest wind, 20 to 25 knots along the entire coast in the afternoon. And then for Cook Inlet, north 10 to 15, northwesterlies tomorrow 25 for the Kamishak Bay area, 20 knots for the Barren Islands, west to southwest at about 20 as you head east along the coast. Lighter winds, Prince William Sound, northwest, 15 to 20 knots here for the Kodiak Island zones. And then again, stronger storm moving across the northeast Gulf, so look for gales to kick in here for the Barren Islands, back into Kamishak Bay, but dropping under gales in the afternoon. 15 to 20 knots, could be some higher gusts early in the day on Sunday for Cook Inlet. Lighter winds for Prince William Sound, but watch for those westerly winds to start kicking up, especially for Passage Canal, maybe as high as 40, 45 miles an hour. And for Bristol Bay, northerlies, 25 knots. Same thing down on the Bering side of the peninsula. On the south side, 20 knots, a little bit lighter. Still looking at those higher gusts here through the channeled areas, much like you saw today. And for Sunday, light variable winds at ridge axis shifting across the peninsula here. So a really light wind day coming up for that area. 20 knot winds Bristol Bay. Northwest starting out 30, 32 knots here southwest of Sitkinak, but dropping off to about 25 knots and then possibly on down toward 20 knots or less late Sunday afternoon into Sunday evening. And then for the Aleutians, gale force winds tomorrow here in the western zone, 25 knot winds just to the east of that. Adak and Atka, basically east 15 to 20 knots and north to northeast at about 20 for the Fox Islands. For Sunday, that front pushes eastward here, so 30 35 to 40 knot gales along in advance of that, with the winds on the increase here, but staying on the light side for the greater Unalaska area through much of Sunday, and then lighter behind the front for the southwest coast and eastern Bering Sea. 30 knots early on or less here, but those definitely coming down in the afternoon or by midday there for St. Lawrence Island, down to about 15 for tomorrow afternoon. But again, small craft advisories to start with here, and then diminishing for the southwest coast. And for Sunday, ridge axis right through here for light variable winds, becoming southeast 15 in the late afternoon for the Pribilofs, also for this western area of St. Matthew Island. Otherwise, you can see pretty light winds from the north are becoming variable at about 10 knots northwest of Nunivak Island across St. Lawrence Island. Up along the Arctic coast tomorrow, northerlies 15 to 20 knots, freezing spray all along this area, and small craft advisories here for the southwest Chukchi Sea, or southeast Chukchi Sea and toward Kotzebue Sound. And for Sunday, northerlies at about 15 here, the entire stretch of the coastline right down to the Bering Strait. And then northwest, stronger, 20 knots here on the east side, up to 30 knots there for that far eastern zone over toward and over to Demarcation Point, with freezing spray continuing. For tonight again, this storm lifts northward, so gale force winds tonight here for the North Gulf Coast, and windy conditions, Lynn Canal Glacier Bay. Rain changing to showers, but pretty continuous here, but not quite as heavy as it has been. This low develops, chance of snow. We got winter weather advisories here. Everywhere it's not green, where there's precipitation, from the pink area right on up to the Brooks Range, stalled out band up there along the north slope, and pretty breezy but dry back to the west. And for tomorrow, another system develops, another slug of moisture brings more rain to the North Gulf Coast. Get a mix over the Copper River Basin, snow up to the north and east of the trough, and that's the picture for Sunday.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.
It's never too early to set expectations and goals for your child's education. The UA College Savings Plan provides opportunities that can help you reach your educational savings goals. Save in Alaska. Study anywhere. There is more information available by calling 1-888, the number 4, and then Alaska. This message sponsored by the UA College Savings Plan.